Hi, I'm Rick from rktestprep.com, and we have important SAT math problems. Number 1, 5,600 subscriptions were sold in 2012, 5,636 in 2013. It's estimated that the percent increase over that period is triple the increase from 2013 to 2014. How many subscriptions did the manager expect to be sold in 2014? So dealing with percents, to get the percent change, you do the new minus the old over the old times 100%. Kids tell me that looks like the standard error formula. So we do 5936 minus 5600 divided by 5600 times 100%. And at that point we get 0.06. So a 6% increase. Now here we want to be careful. That increase is triple the increase from 2013 to 2014. Meaning from 2013 to 2014, it's only going to be 2%. So then we take the 5936, we times it by 1.02, and we get 6055. On the test, they'd probably say round it to the nearest integer. So super important there that we are not tripling this 6%, we're dividing by 3. And as always, I would print out this sheet, try these out, come back to this video if you have questions. There's also a second sheet of problems similar to these you can also print out. Do 1 or 2 each day until these concepts are solid. Number 2, bunch of constants. Here are the roots. Which of the following is a factor? Above where it says roots, we might want to write zeros or even solutions. These are the 3 ways they could ask this. The roots, the solutions, and the zeros are all the same thing. Now, we're working backwards from the roots to the factors. Let's take 5 for example. If you ended up with x equals 5 as a root or a 0 or a solution, what would that mean one of the factors was? Well, in order to get x equals 5, the factor would have had to have been x minus 5. Because when you set that equal to 0, you get 5. I go to the answers, it's not there. Apparently that's not the one they care about. So I go to the others. For negative 3 to be a solution or a root, it would have to be x plus 3. And then to get negative 2, it'd be x plus 2. I take those to the answers. They chose to go with that one. Number 3, here's an equation. Which of the following expresses p in terms of the other variables? So, didn't need to read that because you could just look at the answers. They're all p equals. So always keep one eye on the answers to see how they want it to look. So I would minus the 2a over, and I would minus the 2t over to start to isolate the p term. I divide by 8. And I get that p equals that thing, which is a fine answer, but apparently it's not the version they want. So notice half the game sometimes is turning a perfectly good answer into a different version. So I guess they want us to divide the 160 by 8. It would be then minus 1/4 a minus 1/4 t. Still doesn't match because they're choosing to factor out these 1/4 terms. It's up to you if you want to go to the answers and just distribute and see what matches, or try to factor it out yourself. But it ends up, if you factor out a negative 1/4, then you can get a plus t in the parentheses, which is apparently what they want. So always keep one eye on the answers to see how they want it to look. Number 4, here's an expression. It can be rewritten as ax squared plus b. A and b are constants. What's the value of a plus b? So sometimes in the test there's no more solving, you're just comparing what's in the same spot. And we'll see what that looks like. You can't compare it till you get all the like terms combined. So definitely distribute that 20. And then we can combine our x squared terms. We combine our constants. as such. So now we have an expression. If ax squared plus b equals 210x squared plus 434, what's a have to equal? Well, it's in front of the x, so a is 210, in front of the x squared. And then what's b? B is the constant out there in space, so b is 4534. We add those together, we get 4744. So anytime you see more unknowns than there are equations, you are just going to have to compare what's in the same spot. Number 5, bit of chemistry. They've tested this kind of thing occasionally. How many liters of the 35% solution must be added to 3 liters of the 15% solution to get a 30% solution? So to get the amount of saline, we times the concentration by the amount. So for example, 3 liters times 0.15 gives us the amount of saline that this one contributes. We add then, we don't know how many liters of the 35, so let's call it x, 0.35 times x. And that's going to give us our resulting solution, which needs to have a 30% concentration. So we do 0.30. The last piece, the tricky piece maybe, is how many liters do you have when you add 3 liters to x liters? It ends up that it's x plus 3. So now you can distribute the 0.3, simplify here, combine your like terms. 0.05x equals 0.45, x equals 9. So sometimes you will have that variable on both sides of the equation after you create it, and that just kind of makes it tougher. And again, on the other sheet, there are a couple more of these. Definitely revisit this as needed. Number 6, this point is on this line. This other point is on this other line. What's the value of b over a? So we understand 92% of the test is substitution. When in doubt, you want to substitute in the point. So the first equation becomes, oops, not y. It becomes b equals a plus t. The second equation becomes 3b equals 4a plus t. Now, we don't want t. I see that they're asking about b over a. That's our clue we don't want t. So you could just straight up subtract that entire second equation. And the t's will get eliminated. We eventually want b over a. An intermediate step to getting that is to just get b. And then you put it over a. Very odd to divide a variable by another. A lot of people get fouled up there. But that's why it's d. So always be substituting in and always look to where they're asking you to go to know what to get rid of. Last, number 7 here. What's an equivalent form of this function in which the minimum value of f appears as a constant or coefficient? So this is mostly translation. F is y. We know it's a parabola, so the minimum y value of a parabola is at the vertex. So they're basically translating this to which answer has the y coordinate of the vertex in it as a constant or coefficient. So you can graph it on Desmos. You would get that the vertex is 5, negative 4. So the question becomes, which answer has negative 4 in it? And only D has that value. So occasionally they'll ask something like that, not for the solution, but what answer happens to have that number in it. Number 8, here's a circle. We have an arc that's somewhere between 4 and 5. What's a possible value of the angle? So we know the arc length is some fraction of the circumference, and whatever that fraction is has to be the same as the arc angle over the total angle of the circle. It's basically little over big equals little over big, and 3 out of 4 of those things we can know or find. Now the arc length, they say it's between 4 and 5. I would just call it like 4.5. There are going to be multiple options here, so kind of depends what we use. Circumference is a formula that they give you, 2 pi r. So 2 pi 6 or 12 pi, that's the same as the angle over 360. Cross multiply and solve. If you throw this in the calculator, always put extra parentheses around the pi term because sometimes the calculator does funny stuff if you don't. So we solve that 42.97, so you could say 43 or 42. They would accept either one of those. Or even actually anything from 39 to 47. That's an integer. Number 9, what's the solution set to the equation? This equation looks like a mess, all kinds of fractions. Always keep an eye on the answers. If they're limited and overlapping, you probably just want to plug them into the equation. So for example, knowing what we know about the bottoms of fractions, what can x never equal? Well, it can't be 2 because that would make that fraction a 0 on the bottom. It can't be 0 because that would make the other fraction 0 on the bottom. So we're left with A and D. Now somebody might say, oh, you have to check 1 and 3. But do you? I mean, it's got to be one of these answers, and they both have 1 in them. So you can assume 1 works. So you plug a 3 into the equation, and you get 2 equals a third plus 1, which is not true. So it's not 3, so it's just A. So always lean on the answers for clues. You don't have to solve these messy equations if you can do that. Last problem, number 10. M and K are perpendicular lines. M goes through the origin and intersects K at this point. What's the x-intercept of line K? So we have this point 3, 2. M goes through the origin and in that point, and then K is perpendicular. We can first get the slope of M, the change in y's over change in x's, rise over run. So the slope of M is going to be 2/3, which means the slope of K is going to be negative 2/3. So as we construct our equation for K, we do negative 3/2 x plus b. We then know that K goes through this point 3, 2, so we can sub in a 2 for y and a 3 for x. And we can solve for b. We add the 9/2 over, and we get that 13 over 2 equals b. So then we can rewrite the equation as y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 13 over 2. And the last step, because this would be a problem at the end of the section, as tough as it gets, is they ask about the x-intercept of this line K. So x-intercept is when y is 0. So you drop a 0 in for y and solve. Move the 13 over 2 over, divide by negative 3. You get that x is 13 over 3. So again, check the bottom of the video here for additional problems just like these. Keep revisiting these till they're automatic. Email me if you have any questions. I've scored a perfect score on the test multiple times. I've tutored over 2,000 students. And so any questions you might have, we can definitely answer and help. Good luck.